beautiful thing. It grows to the quiver of a fife that sings. I can take it with the wave of my hand and place it upon my music stand. Such a beautiful thing. Such a beautiful thing.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm Reverend Tony Ponticello. And right now I want to thank the people who are watching this as a prepared video. We post all of my videos on YouTube and on BitChute and on Rumble. So I am Reverend Tony. And at the conference I recently attended, they advised coming up with some sort of descriptor that is uniquely you and that will always bring you to mind when people think and hear it. So I'm the miracle minister with the priest collar. So that's who I am. That's how you'll always know it's Reverend Tony. If you see a miracle minister running around with the priest collar, it's probably me. So far, none of my colleagues have taken one up. So the conference, I just returned from a large conference in Las Vegas, Nevada last week called Freedom Fest. It was a 4-day conference, and it was all about freedom. And there were about 2,200 people there, which is, a lot of people. It was in a very state-of-the-art conference facility called Caesars Forum. Maybe some of you know that. It's right in that central part of Las Vegas, right near where the Sphere is and where the High Roller is, and in between the Lynx Casino and Flamingo and near Harrah's and across the street from Caesars. It's right there in the center. So it was great. I went with Reverend Dussel Thea, and we attended this 4-day conference on freedom, and it was just great being around that many people, just really entertaining and being open to the idea of freedom in all its many different applications and associations. Course in Miracles tells us thoughts increase by being given away. The more who believe in them, the stronger they become. So having 2,200 people giving away and receiving and extending all these various thoughts about freedom was just a beautiful, happy experience. Freedom is a beautiful, happy thought. So I loved having a focus of freedom for that week. And that's what I have titled my talk today, Focus of Freedom. Some people think freedom is a controversial thing. I've talked about this before, or maybe it's a conservative thing. But the conference wasn't really liberal or conservative. It was actually organized by key people in the Libertarian Party. And the Libertarians, a lot of people like to think of them as conservative, but they're not really conservative. I mean, one of the panels that I went to was it was titled Sex Work is the New Marijuana. The decriminalization of prostitution is enjoying a familiar political history. And it was put on by an organization called Decriminalize Sex Work. And it was all about that, about how they were working with other organizations to decriminalize sex work, prostitution, and that they saw it on the same arc as our society had when it decriminalized marijuana, and they were associating that. And it was pretty interesting. I actually learned something that I did not know, which was that New Zealand, the country of New Zealand, decriminalized sex work in 2003 with something called the Prostitution Reform Act of 2003. So they've had 21 years of decriminalized prostitution. And there are massage parlors, and there are even streetwalkers. And it is not a crime to be a prostitute in New Zealand. And they say that it has led to much safer conditions around for the sex workers and less disease. sexually transmitted disease. And they actually think of it as quite a successful program. And it's been going on for 21 years. So it was just interesting. So you wouldn't see something like that at a conservative conference, which usually promotes, family values and the stricter religious ideas and morality ideas. So I just pointed that out to say that this wasn't necessarily what you would call a conservative conference. It was a libertarian conference that focused in on freedom, and libertarians are really big on freedom. And I'm really big on freedom. I've been really big on freedom my whole life. Ever since I was a teenager, I have stood up for freedom and claimed freedom and embraced freedom, sexual freedom, relationship freedom, medical freedom. And freedom is a huge idea in A Course in Miracles. I keep talking about this because I think it's an important message to put out there because it doesn't seem to be focused on. So, as I have said before, freedom itself, the word either free or freedom, is mentioned 652 times in A Course in Miracles. And, that's a whole lot of times. But there are a lot of times when other words are used, and the teaching is really about freedom, even though the word freedom isn't used. I mean, A Course in Miracles talks about being bound, and in a very negative way. So if we unbind ourselves, that's all about freedom. It talks about being bound 79 times. Here's a quote: "The miracle is proof he is not bound by loss or suffering in any form, because it can so easily be changed. So the miracle is about freeing us from our bondage, from whatever bondage we have going on, whether it's physically manifesting or whether it's a bondage strictly in the mind. Whatever it is, it's some manifestation are connected to fear and limitation. And we are to free ourselves from that. We are to not be bound. Sometimes A Course in Miracles uses the word prison or prisoner. That uses that 59 times. Sometimes it talks about chains or the dropping away of chains. That's 41 times. Sometimes it uses the word slave or slavery. That's 32 times. And I'm sure there are other words A Course in Miracles uses that relate to freedom, really. But just with those ones that I've just mentioned, that's 863 mentions of something that is definitely freedom. And just to put that into a context, forgive or forgiveness is mentioned 699 times. Freedom 863 times. Of course, there's probably other words that bring forgiveness to mind too, but you can see that freedom is just as big of an issue as forgiveness. And I hear a lot of A Course in Miracles teachers and students talking about forgiveness. If you ask them what A Course in Miracles is about, forgiveness probably enters into their description of A Course in Miracles somewhere. We've pretty much accepted that in the Miracles community, that A Course in Miracles is teaching us forgiveness, all about forgiveness. But I never hear Course in Miracles teachers or students, for that matter, talk about freedom. You ask them what A Course in Miracles is, do you ever hear it says it's all about learning that we're free? It's all about embracing our freedom. It's all about manifesting our freedom. I can't remember people ever saying that. And 2 weeks ago, when I did my 4th of July talk, I challenged A Course in Miracles teachers all over. Why aren't you talking about freedom? And so today I'm going to challenge all of you and the Course in Miracles students all over. Why aren't we talking about freedom? This is a really important issue in A Course in Miracles. Let's not hide it under a bushel. Let's get it. Let's start talking about it. Okay, here's a quotation. This was in the passage that Reverend Rudy read. "Freedom is given you where you beheld but chains and iron doors. For you must change your mind about the purpose of the world. If you would find escape, you will be bound till all the world is seen as blessed." Now, how many of us really see the world as blessed. A lot of people, most of the Course in Miracles students that I know, see the world as this negative place that's all illusion that they want to escape. Do we really see the world as blessed? You know, I love that quote I just read because that's got the words freedom, chains, and bound all in it together. So again, Course in Miracles, all about freedom. It's all about getting out of our chains. It's all about not being bound. And we do that by seeing the world as blessed. Now ask yourself, how are you doing with that right now? How are you doing with seeing the world as blessed? You know, considering the events of the last few weeks, considering the United States of America's presidential election that is going on, considering the presidential debate that happened 2 weeks ago, a little plus 2 weeks ago, considering the attempted assassination that happened just about a week ago, considering the Republican convention that happened last week, how are you with feeling that the world is blessed and seeing the world as blessed? You know, I do want to speak just a couple minutes about the attempted assassination. I was actually pretty disheartened to hear a few people and to feel a few people saying or thinking, too bad he missed. I mean, really? I heard that, you know, and some people kind of thought it was funny. It was funny. First of all, if former President Trump had actually been killed, can you imagine the chaos that would be going on right now? Maybe the riots that would be going on right now. So to just say in a cavalier, funny manner, it's too bad he missed. I mean, really? Is murder ever a good thing? Of Course in Miracles actually talks about murder quite often. The word murder is mentioned 54 times, and it's never mentioned in a good light. Uh, Here's a quote. Here, murder is your choice. Yet from above, the choice is miracles instead of murder. How can the truth of miracles be recognized if murder is your choice? So miracles are the opposite of murder. We're studying a course in miracles. We're not studying a course in murder. So if any of you were one of those who even entertained in your mind, without actually ever saying it, too bad he missed, challenge yourself. Murder is never the answer. Miracles are the answer. And whatever negative ideas one may have, miracles are the answer to those, not murder. You know, A Course in Miracles teaching about freedom is really interesting because it really says that we are already free. We do not have to learn how to be free. One quote is, and now is freedom his already? Should I wait in chains which have been severed for release when God is offering me freedom now? You know, should I wait in chains that have been severed for release? I've got a little screen share I want to do for that. There we go. Our chains have been severed, and there is no reason to wait any longer. I love this graphic. It implies that the chains were severed by some sort of light or some kind of divine force. You know, many are trying to figure out how to break the chains. They feel that they're enslaved and they want to figure out how to break the chains. And mostly that is wasted effort. The chains are already broken. We do not have to figure out how to break them. We just have to learn how to accept that the chains are already broken. Let me stop the share there. The Course says prisoners bound with heavy chains for years starved and emaciated, weak and exhausted, with eyes so long cast down in darkness, they remember not the light, do not leap up in joy the instant they are made free. It takes a while for them to understand what freedom is. So I think many of us, of course, are in this phase. It's taking a while for us to realize that we are already free. And maybe that's why I really loved the conference so much, Freedom Fest, is because I was around 2,200 people who recognized that they were free and were willing to give and share that energy. They weren't imprisoned trying to seek their freedom. They were recognizing that they were free, and it was really, really enlivening to be within that focus of freedom. That freedom was now. If freedom's in the future, it's depressing. Uh, and if you're thinking that freedom for you is going to be in the future, I ask you to shift those thoughts and realize that you are free now. You just have to embrace that freedom now. Some more traditional Christians like to usually think that that freedom was given us when Jesus had his resurrection. When Jesus overcame death and had the resurrection, that thought of death not being real and that death could be overcome was put into the mind. So it is there. And of course, the final freedom would be freedom from death. So it's all there. All the freedom. We just have to accept it. We just have to embrace it. And embracing it from a position that you are currently imprisoned or that you are currently in chains is a very, what the Course calls, tedious and time-consuming way to approach it. We need to approach it from the foundation that it is already here. Freedom has already happened. We have to see it, acknowledge it, and embrace it. The Course says, yet the means are tedious and very time-consuming, for all of them look to the future for release from a present state of unworthiness and inadequacy. So if we're bound, then we're unworthy in some way, or we're inadequate in some way, and it's hard to achieve freedom from a bound state. We have to realize that we actually aren't bound, that we actually already are free, and then embrace that freedom. So yeah, I love Freedom Fest, and I love experiencing freedom now. And I signed up for next year's Freedom Fest, which will be in Palm Springs, right around my birthday. It'll be a good birthday trip for me. And I've never been to Palm Springs. I've told a number of people this past year, I've never been to Palm Springs. A lot of people go to Palm Springs. I think I'd like to go to Palm Springs sometime. And so I'm getting the opportunity. Next year, the Freedom Fest conference will be in Palm Springs right around my birthday, a couple days after my birthday. So it'll be a good birthday trip for me. We are not imprisoned. We are not in chains. And we are not inadequate in any way in our present moment to experiencing our freedom. And if we think we are, it's really just a delay maneuver. We're delaying our healing ministry and we're delaying our joy by feeling that we need to free ourselves instead of embracing the notion and the truth that we indeed already are free. The Course says delay does not matter in eternity, but it is tragic in time. You have elected to be in time rather than eternity. So when we delay by not believing that we are free now, it's really kind of tragic. And it tragically locks us into time and the progression of things that seems to happen in time, the usual life cycle of life and death. That's all in the world of time. And if we think we're inadequate and limited and imprisoned by that, we aren't really embracing the truth and we are just delaying. It's just a delay means. Everybody says they want to be healed. Certainly, you talk to people, especially in the spiritual community. Everybody says they want to be healed. But how many of them are truly willing to let go of all condemnation that they have in their minds? How many of them are really willing to let go of all thoughts of murder that they may still have in their minds, even if they don't voice them verbally, but they still spin them around every once in a while? We're never going to have the healing and the release and the living in a perpetual state of freedom and happiness and joy while we think it's okay to condemn, which really is us thinking that is okay to murder. I'm tired of the delays. I'm tired of my own delays, that for sure. And I'm weary of the ego world. I want to see the real world. I'm weary of the repeated tragedy that happens in the ego world. I want to see the healing miracles and transformation that's in the real world. And it's all a choice. It's all literally just a choice we get to make. We get to make it now. We get to make it every moment. We get to make it here every Sunday. I really encourage people to think about that. Think about that every Sunday when you're making the decision whether to show up or not. Because really, it's a decision for miracles, maybe, instead of murder. Don't delay. Be here with like-minded people. Share these miraculous freedom thoughts with me and with the other wonderful speakers that we have. And I hope we're going to have some more speakers soon. I think we're going to have some more speakers soon. But of course, Reverend Vincent, Reverend Peter give wonderful talks from time to time, and all the shares that go on after the gathering too. I mean, those are wonderful things. They're wonderful shares, usually, of miracles instead of condemnation in murder. And we need that reinforcement. We need to be able to embrace that miracles are real and here and now, and freedom is here and now. I was truly enlivened and inspired being in that environment in the Freedom Fest conference, because to me it just personified and was a wonderful demonstration of the course's teaching of being in freedom now. Not in the future, right now. And that's what I have today to say today. So says the miracle minister with the priest collar. Freedom now. Yeah. Amen.
A flower is a beautiful thing. It grows to the quiver of a fife that sings. I can take it with the wave of my hand and place it upon my music stand. Such a beautiful thing. Such a beautiful thing.